friend. Welcome to the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I'm your host, Emily Cleghorn. This podcast is for mamas navigating childhood trauma while also walking through mamahood. Together, we will empower each other to connect with who we were created to be versus who we were told to be in our trauma. I'm so excited that you've decided to take some time out of your day to join me and tune in. I hope you find this podcast uplifting and empowering. Let's get to it. Today, I am joined by Jen Rafferty. She is in the education space. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So let's get started, Jen, just by having you share a little bit of your story and how you help families.
Sure. So I live in New York, central New York, and I am a mom of two. I recently, just a little over 2 years ago, got divorced and moved out right when the world shut down. So literally that weekend, I moved out, and all of a sudden, all of the things that were not anymore. And I also I was a teacher in public school. I taught music, and I overnight had to figure out online teaching, homeschooling my kids, and, along with everyone else, kind of reinvent a new life. And because of that opportunity, and I can look back and really see it as an opportunity to reinvent myself, I found a new way that I can really live my mission, which has always been to inspire people to discover their voice. And when I was in the classroom teaching music, that was quite literal, but I discovered that there was something else for me. There was a inner voice kind of calling that there was something else. And I followed that piece of me, and it landed me to actually start my own business. And now I serve teachers and school leaders and work with school districts to find their voice and empower them in ways that they can understand how to regain their sense of agency again, so they can feel good every day and leave behind the world where they are feeling exhausted, depleted, burnout, and overwhelmed. And, while the work that I'm doing explicitly isn't changing the institutional systems and the things that are broken within those organizations, what we're doing is focusing on ourselves. And when we focus on ourselves, that's when we see all of the external things start to change. So I serve families by serving teachers who then, who, first of all, many of them are parents themselves. And, they, of course, impact generations of kids moving forward. So it's exciting work.
Yeah, it sounds like it is always an adventure. So let's dive in a little bit to your work assisting students and teachers to find their voice as trauma survivors. Many of our listeners are on that journey themselves, finding their voice and rediscovering their sense of agency. So can you speak to that piece just a little bit?
Sure. And I do want to be clear here too, that the work that I do is actually really geared towards adults, because while our intentions is always to help kids and to teach them the things, if we ourselves are not well versed in these skills, then we're actually not able to teach them, because even though the words that we say might be the right things, the things that we model actually speak so much more loudly than the things that we're saying. So, the thing that I think is most important in finding your voice is understanding the role that self-regulation has to play. So before we can even get to a point where you are able to say the things you want to say and show up and do the things you want to do, you have to get really comfortable noticing what's happening physically in your body. Because without self-regulation, we're always in a state of survival.
Mhm.
And, whether you've gone through big T trauma, little T trauma, your nervous system reacts the same way.
Mhm.
The trauma happens inside of you. It's not, of course, the actual event. It's the feelings that happen and that are remembered in your body and in your system.
Mhm.
So when you're able to really understand how your body and is interplaying with your mind, then start to notice when you're feeling activated and start regulating. That's the first step in actually finding your voice.
Yeah. So let's talk for a minute, just so that everybody is on the same page. What is self-regulation? What are the steps to becoming a self-regulated individual?
Mm. Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. I think a lot of us, including myself, assume, I'm immersed in this work all the time, and I'm glad we're taking a second to really define it. And really, self-regulation is going from that survival state
Mhm.
where your brain is activated, the part of your brain responsible for that stress response, your amygdala, is on. It hasn't evolved much since the days we were hunting and gathering and being chased by bears. So even though it might seem like a harmless interaction, your amygdala still feels like it's being chased by a bear. And so that survival state is when we're activated, and things happen in our systems like increased heart rate, our breathing gets faster, you might experience muscle tension or tightness, stomach pains, or you might sweat. And these are all ways that we go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And when we are in that state, that stress state, there are parts of our brain that aren't functioning anymore because we don't need them when we're being chased by a bear. So essentially, it shuts off things like your prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive thinking, problem solving, creativity, prioritizing, things that we probably will need to solve the problem or deal with a situation that's in front of us that's causing us stress. So self-regulation is encompassing of the tools that we use to bring ourselves from actively feeling as if we're being chased by a bear, survival, to safety, where our nervous system is like, all right, like we're good. We are so good. And then everything comes back online and you can actually go ahead and do the things that you need to do. So self-regulation happens in the middle.
Yeah. So, what is one thing that a mama listening right now who is finding herself living in that survival state, and she's wanting to calm, bring it down, and get in that safe space? What is one thing that she can do now, to self-regulate?
Mm. So if it's okay, I'm going to give more than one. Can I?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Here's the thing about self-regulation too. It's not a one size fits all. And
No.
it's important that we have kind of a smorgasbord of what's available to us, because
Mhm.
different things call for different strategies and techniques.
Mhm.
So I'm actually going to start with saying first is, a lot of times when we talk about self-regulation, we're going to talk about breathing. Okay. But I'm going to talk about that in a second. But breathing and going from activated to breathing sometimes isn't always the best, because you can't go from feeling angry, resentful, frustrated to like, it's cool, like we're good. Because
Mhm.
when that's the expectation, what happens is emotional bypass. And
Mhm.
we push down those feelings of anger, resentment, frustration in an effort to self-regulate,
Mhm.
but we're actually just pushing them down, and they have to go somewhere. So they
Mhm.
stay in our body because feelings happen in our body, thoughts happen in our minds, feelings happen in our body. So they stay in our body, and then they fester, and we,
Mhm.
a couple of weeks go by and all of a sudden our back hurts, or all of a sudden, we're not eating right because we just don't feel good, and then we get sick, and then it compiles. So I want to say that there are several self-regulation techniques that don't have anything to do with breathing, in an effort to release emotion from your body
Mhm.
first that feels necessary. So things like screaming, when was the last time you had a really good, like primal scream, and, I'm not talking about like screaming at your kids. That's different. That's different. I'm talking about, get in your car, roll up the windows and just let her rip. Or if you are in a place where your family's home, go upstairs in a quiet space, even in a closet. And a good way to muffle a scream, but still get that out, is actually by taking your elbow and putting it into your mouth and like really like get it out, scream, but it's muffled. So you're not going to cause any concern for anybody downstairs. But what's going to happen is once that anger comes out, usually the tears come too. And all of that is necessary for your body to release emotion. Another thing is throwing around a medicine ball. I actually have one right here, getting a medicine ball, putting it up, and just throwing it down and really getting rid of all of that low energetic level emotion, right? So those are a couple things you can do. The other side of this is breathing. Breathing is important. Sometimes I use this a lot in the car. I'm driving down the highway. I live in kind of this city within a really big rural area. So driving places, it takes a long time. And for whatever reason, we get on this one highway and my two kids, it's like, they know if we're on this one highway, that's when they start arguing in the back. And there have been, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be real here. And how many times is it really easy to just like turn around and just, right? This breathing exercise has been essential, again, for me and so many other people that I work with to self-regulate. So I use a box breath. That's the easiest for me to go to, but there are so many where we go in for 4, we pause for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4. I do that around 3 times. And again, we're not, going to be singing Kumbaya necessarily at the end of it. The idea is creating safety in your system so it no longer feels like it's being chased by a bear.
Yeah. One that I find quite helpful for me on occasion is screaming into a pillow.
Yeah, anything, just get it out, right?
Yeah, you have to get it out, because if you don't, it will fester, like Jen said, and it is bound and determined to come out in one way or another, whether it's you expressing your emotion in a way that you desire to express your emotion, or some kind of disease or digestive issue that you don't want to be dealing with. So let it out.
Yeah. And you keep your body really clean and clear. And another thing about this too, that I think is important to mention here is, emotion is such an essential part of being human. And we make so much meaning about feeling emotions that we judge them. So when we're crying, it has to mean something. And I'm going to encourage those people who are listening is really lean in and understand that this is part of your humanity. And tears don't necessarily have to mean anything. I know now if my eyes are leaking, it's just a way that my body is releasing emotion, and my kids, we laugh because if there is a day where I'm not crying, something's wrong with me. Because that's just, whether I'm happy or I'm feeling grateful or I'm pissed off or like I'm angry about something or sad, there is a release that needs to happen. And to make that safe within and of itself is really important. And just going to put this out there too, there might need to be some attention paid and some self-regulation paid to when that feels scary, even just to feel emotion.
Yeah, for the longest time, I associated with letting my emotions out as weakness. And what I have come to learn is that letting my emotions out is actually a sign of strength. It is actually a sign of strength. And they're not anything to be ashamed in. even if at some point in your life you were shamed for showing them.
Yes. And, these ideas about how we feel about our own emotions were learned.
Mm-hmm.
We learned them somewhere along the way. For me, and the story that I tell about my journey with emotions, and all of the work that I've done, the research I've done, the professional and personal work, everything that I teach, I do myself.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing. And I go back to this moment where I made meaning of a situation that taught me that my feelings didn't matter. And when I was sad, it made other people feel sad. So this memory was, I remember feeling I was probably 6 years old. My mom was probably comforting me. And she made a comment to me about, how, I feel so sad when you're sad, which is, from a 38-year-old woman's perspective, who's also a mom, it's a beautiful moment of empathy and an attempt of connection with her daughter. But for me, in my little 6-year-old brain, with no context of the world, working with just full subconscious development, not having a conscious brain developed yet, made meaning of that as my feelings, my sadness causes other people to feel sad. I don't want to make other people feel sad. And that was something that I just learned in that moment, that it wasn't until, relatively recently, within the last couple of years, I've been really diving in and doing this work. I found that memory and said, oh gosh, well, that's not true. And work around that, where now feeling my feelings, no matter what they are not only totally safe, but they're celebrated and honored.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you'd like to offer our listeners today?
Oh my gosh, yes, I would love to. So on my website, empowerededucator.com, there is a free resource on there of 10 ways to beat the burnout. I call it that because that's kind of my audience of, if you're feeling burnt out in education, but let's be real, like everyone knows what feeling burnout is like. And essentially those are 10 self-regulation techniques that you can use on the fly. So, for me, I have that list right up by my desk, because even as someone who's been doing this work for so long, it's nice to have a reminder, okay, I can get up and dance. That's another way to move and shake and change your physical state, change your emotional state. So that free resource is available for you to download. And it's just a nice way to remember some of the things that you might not think off the top of your head because you're feeling so activated.
Yeah. Real life, man. Real life.
Yeah, it's going to keep it real, right?
So how can our audience connect with you further if they would like to follow you on social media or connect?
Sure. Well, the easiest way is probably, if you download that PDF, you'll automatically get subscribed to the emails, which will give you an opportunity to get in touch with some more self-regulation techniques and real life things and applications you can do on a daily basis. I am on Facebook at Empowered Educator Faculty Room, which is my group there, and Instagram and Twitter, it's Jen Rafferty _. And of course, if you want to learn a little bit more about how you can work with me, again, on my website, empowerededucator.com, you can easily just book a connection call, and I'd love to talk with you and see what's going on with you.
Awesome. So I will include links to all of those different platforms in the show notes of this episode. So you can click in the description to the read more or the click here button, whatever it says, and access all of those links so that you can connect with Jen further. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jen. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to working together in the future.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you resonated with what you heard, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it with a friend who would also benefit, because we rise together. Until next time, Mama, keep shining.